The throne room was silent, darker than ever before. Shadows crept along the cold stone walls, stretching as if they, too, mourned the loss that had broken the heart of the alien queen. She sat alone, her royal robes barely moving as the weight of her sorrow pressed down on her. Her eyes, once fierce and commanding, now appeared distant, clouded with the pain of losing her only daughter. The throne room, grand and imposing, felt empty. Her people, the mighty warriors, the scientists and the wise elders, stood in silence, not daring to speak. They had never seen their queen like this, so vulnerable, so lost. For weeks, the queen had retreated into her chambers, refusing to leave, refusing to rule. Her daughter, the heir to the throne, had disappeared during a vicious battle with the humans. The queen had not seen her since that day. And now she feared that her daughter was gone forever, swallowed by the cruelty of war. She wiped away the single tear that slid down her cheek, the only sign of her grief. To her, it felt like a weakness, but there was nothing she could do to stop it. She had led her people through countless battles. But this loss was different. Her daughter had been her everything. She had trained her, loved her, and raised her to one day take the throne. But now, the throne would remain empty. As the queen sat there, the weight of the silence nearly suffocating her, a voice broke through the stillness. It was one of her most trusted advisors, a warrior with years of experience and knowledge. He stepped forward hesitantly, as though he too feared disturbing the queen's fragile state. "Your Majesty," the warrior began, his voice soft, "there are rumors that your daughter is alive." The queen's heart skipped a beat. For a moment, she couldn't believe what she had just heard. Her mind raced. Alive? After all this time? Could it be true? She looked up, her eyes narrowing with a mix of hope and skepticism. "Alive," she repeated, her voice a mere whisper. The warrior nodded. "There are whispers among the people. Some claim they've seen her, alive and well. But there is something strange, something not right. They say she is with a human." The queen's eyes widened. A human. The thought was absurd. Her daughter, the pride of her people, could never ally with the humans. They had been enemies for years, locked in a brutal, unending war. It was unthinkable. Yet the whispers were growing stronger. She couldn't ignore them. "What do you mean with a human?" the queen demanded, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and curiosity. The warrior took a step back, sensing the queen's rising fury. "There is an ancient prophecy, Your Majesty, one that speaks of the return of a lost princess, but it said she will return not alone, but with a human by her side. It said that this human will be her companion, her protector, and that together they will bring about great change." The queen's mind was spinning. A prophecy. She had heard of such things, but they were always vague, old stories told by the elders. Yet the thought of it now felt too real, too urgent. Was this truly the answer she had been waiting for, or was it just another cruel trick of fate? The warrior hesitated before continuing. "I don't know if it's true, Your Majesty, but the people, they believe. And there are those among us who think this prophecy could be our salvation, or our doom." The queen stood up, her anger rising like a storm inside her. "Salvation, or doom? What are you suggesting? Do you believe this prophecy?" The warrior lowered his head, not daring to meet her gaze. "I don't know what to believe, my queen. But the prophecy speaks of a return, of a powerful bond between your daughter and the human. And it is said that this bond will either unite our two races or tear them apart." The room fell silent once more, the weight of the words hanging in the air. The queen's heart raced. Could her daughter truly be alive? And if she was, what had happened to her? Why would she return with a human? She walked slowly to the edge of her throne, her mind in turmoil. The ancient prophecy had always been nothing more than a legend, a story told to bring hope in dark times. But now, it seemed as if that very legend had come to life. She could not ignore it. If there was even a chance that her daughter was alive, she had to find her. But how could she trust a prophecy? And how could she trust a human? The queen took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing thoughts. She was a ruler, not a woman lost in grief. She had led her people through countless wars, and now she would face this new challenge, no matter how impossible it seemed. "I will not give in to grief," the queen said, her voice steady but cold. "I will search for the truth behind this prophecy. If my daughter is alive, I will find her." But even as she spoke, doubt lingered in her heart. What if the prophecy was right? What if her daughter had truly returned with a human by her side? And what would that mean for their entire race? Would it be a new beginning, or the end of everything they had known? As the queen turned to leave the throne room, the weight of her decision pressed down on her. She had a choice to make: follow the prophecy or ignore it, seek the truth or let it remain a mystery. Her advisors, standing in the shadows, exchanged worried glances. They had seen their queen conquer many enemies, but this was different. This was the unknown, and no one knew what the future would hold. The queen stood on the balcony of her palace, gazing out over her kingdom. The stars above seemed cold and distant, as though they too had lost hope. The people of her race had grown restless. The war with the humans had taken everything from them. And now, the disappearance of the queen's daughter had left the entire civilization in a state of mourning. No one had the answers, and no one knew what to believe anymore. But the queen couldn't allow herself to fall into despair. The prophecy lingered in her mind like a haunting echo. The idea that her daughter was alive, and possibly with a human, was too much to ignore. She had to know the truth, no matter the cost. In the grand hall of the palace, she summoned her most trusted advisors. The room was filled with tension as they waited for her to speak. The queen, standing at the head of the table, looked down at the faces of her most loyal warriors, generals, and counselors. They too were filled with uncertainty, but they trusted her leadership, even in these dark times. "Prepare a search," the queen commanded, her voice firm, but laced with a quiet desperation. "We will leave no stone unturned. I want every planet, every corner of this galaxy searched for any sign of my daughter. We cannot wait any longer." One of her top generals, a tall, imposing figure, stepped forward. "Your Majesty, the humans are everywhere. Their forces have spread far and wide. It won't be easy to track her down, especially if she's with one of them." The queen's gaze hardened. "I don't care how difficult it is. We will find her, even if we must face every human in the galaxy. If she is alive, we will bring her back." The room fell into a heavy silence. The queen's words echoed in the minds of her advisors. They knew the risks. The humans were powerful, and they had no love for the alien race. Every mission would be dangerous, every battle uncertain. But they had no choice. The queen's will was absolute, and if there was even a sliver of hope that her daughter had survived, they would follow her. "We will begin immediately," the general said, bowing his head in respect. As the meeting ended, the queen left the room and walked through the dimly lit corridors of the palace. Her mind was consumed with thoughts of her daughter. What had happened to her? How had she survived the battle? And why was she now allied with a human? The questions gnawed at her, but she refused to let doubt take control. That night, as the search teams prepared to depart, the queen found herself standing alone in her chambers. She had never felt so alone, not even in the midst of war. Her people were loyal, her advisors were strong, but in this moment, the weight of the prophecy was hers alone to bear. She reached out to the ancient communications device hidden in her chambers. It was a relic, one that had not been used in centuries. Only a few people knew of its existence. The device had the ability to reach beyond the known galaxies, connecting with distant civilizations that might know something about the prophecy. The queen had never believed in such things, but now, desperation drove her to try. Her fingers hovered over the controls, hesitating. She could hear the whispers in her mind, the doubts, the fears. What if the prophecy was wrong? What if her daughter was never coming back? But then she thought of the human. The prophecy had said that her daughter would return with a human. Could this strange connection between the two races be the key to everything? Was this the answer to ending the war, to uniting her people with the humans, or would it tear them apart? With a deep breath, the queen pressed the button, sending a signal into the unknown. The device hummed to life, and a voice crackled through the static. "Your Majesty," the voice said, unfamiliar yet calm, "we have received your message. We know of the prophecy, the return of the princess, the human, and what is to come. But be warned, what you seek will not come without consequences." The queen's heart raced. She hadn't expected an answer so quickly, nor one so cryptic. "What do you mean?" she demanded. "What consequences?" The voice on the other end was slow to respond. "The bond between your daughter and the human is powerful, stronger than you know, but it is also dangerous. You must be careful, for not all humans will be so willing to join with you. There are others who seek to destroy what you are trying to build." The queen's grip tightened on the device. "Who are you? And what is this danger?" The voice was silent for a moment before replying. "We are watchers, not participants. We see the threads of fate, but we do not weave them. What you seek may either save your people or destroy them. The human, the prophecy. It is a path that will lead to one of two futures, unity or ruin." The queen's mind reeled. She had no answers, only more questions. The prophecy, the human, her daughter. It was all becoming too overwhelming. The connection suddenly cut off, leaving her alone with her thoughts. She stood there, staring at the device in her hands, the weight of the prophecy pressing down on her. She had come this far, and now there was no turning back. She knew that the search must continue. But the warning, the voice, haunted her. Was it telling the truth? Was her daughter truly part of something that could either save them all or doom them forever? With a final, resolute breath, the queen turned away from the device. The search for her daughter would not stop, no matter what obstacles lay ahead. The prophecy was real, and it would either bring salvation or destruction. Her people, her daughter, and the entire future of their race were at stake. The queen had to find the answers, before it was too late. The queen had spent countless days in her worship, traveling from one galaxy to another, chasing rumors, whispers, and any trace that could lead her to her daughter. Every moment without answers chipped away at her resolve, but the queen could not afford to let her grief cloud her determination. She had a duty to her people, and she would not stop until she knew the truth. Her search had brought her to the planet Kyloth, a small and remote world at the edge of the galaxy, occupied by both alien and human settlers. The air was thick with tension, and rumors of the queen's daughter spread like wildfire among the locals. The queen stood on the bridge of her ship, staring down at the planet below, her thoughts racing. Was this the place? Could this be where her daughter had returned? And why with a human? With a deep breath, the queen gave the order to land. Her heart pounded in her chest as the ship descended toward the surface. The entire crew was on edge, unsure of what they might find. The queen, however, felt a strange sense of purpose, as though fate had brought her here. As the ship touched down, the queen was immediately met by a small group of her loyal soldiers and local leaders. Their faces were tense, their eyes filled with both curiosity and fear. They had heard of the prophecy, and now they knew why the queen had come. They had heard stories of her daughter, but no one truly knew what had happened to her after the battle with the humans. The queen's soldiers moved swiftly, securing the area around the landing site. The local leaders led the way as the queen followed them through the narrow, dusty streets of Kyloth's main settlement. The air smelled of burning wood, and the sound of distant machinery hummed in the background. The world felt both alien and familiar to her. After what felt like hours, they'd finally arrived at a clearing. In the center stood a figure, cloaked in the shadows. The queen's heart skipped a beat. Could it be? Could this be her daughter? The figure turned, and the queen's breath caught in her throat. There, standing before her, was the young woman she had once known, her daughter. But this was not the girl the queen had raised. This was someone different, stronger, fiercer, and she was not alone. Beside her daughter stood a human, a man, his features hardened by the years of war. His eyes met the queen's, and for a brief moment, they exchanged a silent understanding. The bond between them was clear, unspoken but undeniable. The queen's heart ached as she gazed at her daughter, who stood tall and proud, her eyes filled with a mixture of strength and sorrow. Her hair, once long and flowing, was now cropped short, a symbol of her transformation. Her once soft features were now sharp and weathered, as though the years of war had changed her in ways the queen couldn't yet understand. "Mother," the daughter said, her voice low and steady, "it's been so long." The queen struggled to find her voice, her emotions threatening to overwhelm her. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times, but now that it was here, she didn't know what to say. She took a tentative step forward, her eyes never leaving her daughter's face. "You're alive," the queen whispered, barely able to believe it. "I thought I lost you forever." The daughter nodded, her gaze softening. "I never wanted to leave you, but things change." The queen took another step forward, her eyes searching her daughter's face for answers. "What happened? Where have you been? Why are you with him?" She gestured toward the human standing beside her daughter. The daughter's expression hardened. "It's not what you think. I didn't choose this. I didn't choose to be with a human. But I had no choice. They saved me." The queen's eyes narrowed. "Saved you? From what?" The daughter's gaze dropped to the ground, and for a moment, the queen saw a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes. "From the darkness, from everything we were taught to fear, they showed me something that we never knew. They showed me the truth." The queen's heart ached as she realized that her daughter had changed, perhaps beyond anything she could have imagined. She had always been strong, but this new strength seemed different, something born of pain and survival. And the human standing beside her, he was part of that change. The human stepped forward, his face hard but respectful. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice steady. "I am Marcus. I understand this must be difficult for you. But your daughter is not the same as she was before. She is more than just your hair now. She is something different." The queen turned her gaze on him, her eyes cold. "What do you mean? What has happened to my daughter?" Marcus hesitated, his expression conflicted. "She's stronger, and it's because of the bond between us. It's hard to explain, but it's the only way we could survive. It's the only way we could fight." The queen's mind raced. What bond? What had happened between them? And what did it mean for her people? She had come to find her daughter, to bring her back to the throne. But now she found herself standing face to face with something she didn't understand, something far more complex than she had ever imagined. Her daughter, now bound to a human in a way she could not comprehend, was no longer just the girl she had raised. The prophecy, the whispers, the rumors, it was all true. But what did this new reality mean for the future? The queen's voice trembled as she spoke. "What have you become? And what does this mean for our people?" The daughter met her mother's gaze, her expression unyielding. "It means we have a choice. We can either keep fighting, as we always have, or we can find another way. Together, with the humans." The queen's heart pounded in her chest. She had spent her life fighting against the humans. Could she truly trust them now? Could she trust her daughter, who had changed so much, and the human who stood at her side? For the first time in years, the queen felt a flicker of hope and fear. This was not the reunion she had imagined. It was the beginning of something far greater and far more dangerous than she could ever have predicted. The air between the queen and her daughter was thick with tension. Neither spoke as they stood there, the distance between them vast and filled with unspoken words. The queen's mind was a whirl of questions, doubts, and anger. She had found her daughter, but this wasn't the reunion she had hoped for. Her daughter, once a symbol of their people's future, was now standing with a human, a man who had fought against them, who represented everything the Queen had spent her life opposing. Her daughter's words echoed in the Queen's mind. We have a choice. We can either keep fighting, as we always have, or we can find another way, together with the humans. The Queen's gaze hardened. Another way. There is no other way, daughter. The humans are our enemies. We have fought them for years, and you expect me to believe that we should join them now. The daughter's expression softened, though a hint of sadness lingered in her eyes. You don't understand, Mother. Things have changed. The war, it's not what we thought it was. The humans aren't the enemy we've been told about. There's something bigger, something that threatens both our races, and we need each other to face it. The Queen clenched her fists, her voice rising with frustration. And you think you can simply forget everything we fought for? You think you can forget your duty to your people? You've been with them too long. You've become one of them. Her daughter stepped forward, her eyes pleading. No, Mother, I haven't forgotten. I would never forget you or our people. But what I've learned from them, what we've learned together, is that our survival depends on understanding each other, not destroying each other. The human race isn't what we were taught. They have their own struggles, their own fight for survival. And we can either stay in this endless cycle of war and hatred, or we can try to build something new. The Queen's heart wrenched as she looked at the young woman she had raised. This wasn't the same daughter who had once trained with her under the stars, learning how to lead their people, how to fight and win. This was someone different, someone who had seen a different side of the universe, someone whose beliefs had been shaped by experiences the Queen could not even begin to understand. Marcus, the human, stood quietly beside the daughter, his eyes never leaving the Queen. I understand your anger, Your Majesty, he said, his voice calm yet firm. But your daughter is right. There's something far more dangerous than our wars, something neither your people nor mine can face alone. The Queen turned her gaze toward him, her eyes cold. And what is this something that you think we can't face alone? Marcus stepped forward, lowering his voice. There are dark forces at work in the galaxy, forces that seek to destroy all of us, human and alien alike. It's not about our differences anymore. It's about survival. The Queen's heart skipped a beat. She had heard whispers of such threats, of ancient powers, long thought to be mere legends, stirring in the darkness. But could this human, this enemy of her people, truly know something she didn't? She had always relied on her people's strength and wisdom, but now she felt as though the ground beneath her was shifting. She couldn't ignore what Marcus was saying. There was something in his eyes that told her he wasn't lying. Survival, the Queen repeated, her voice cold, but a flicker of uncertainty creeping in. You speak of survival, but we have survived for centuries without needing the help of humans. Her daughter stepped in, her voice gentle but firm. Mother, what if we're wrong? What if everything we've been taught, everything we've believed, is a lie? What if the real threat is out there, waiting to destroy us all, and we've been too blind to see it? The Queen's mind spun. What had happened to her daughter? What had she learned from these humans that had changed her so completely? Was this truly the path they needed to take? She looked at Marcus again. His expression was calm, but there was an intensity behind his eyes that made her pause. He wasn't just trying to win her over. He wasn't asking for peace out of kindness or weakness. He was asking for something more, something that could either save them all or destroy them completely. The Queen took a deep breath, forcing herself to calm the storm of emotions that swirled inside her. If I agree to this alliance, what exactly are we fighting against? What is the true threat? Marcus nodded, his face serious. It's a faction of rogue humans, and possibly alien groups, who have turned to dark technology, ancient weapons that could destroy entire planets. They want to control the galaxy, to wipe out anyone who stands in their way, including us. I will not risk my people's lives on some impossible mission, the Queen said firmly. But if there is even a chance of stopping this weapon, we will take it. Her daughter stepped forward, her eyes filled with determination. "I'll go with Marcus. We can get in and out without being detected. We have the skills, the knowledge. Together, we can make it work." The queen's gaze softened slightly as she looked at her daughter, but the doubt in her heart remained. Could she truly allow her to go into such danger? She had already lost her once. The thought of losing her again was unbearable. "No," the queen said, her voice resolute. "You will not go. It's too dangerous. I cannot risk losing you again." But her daughter didn't flinch. "Mother, I'm not the same person I was. I can do this. I've changed, and I'm ready to fight. We all are." The queen's heart wavered, but she could not show weakness. Not now. Not when the fate of so many depended on her. "I will send my best warriors," the queen said firmly. "You will remain here, where it is safe." Her daughter opened her mouth to argue, but Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder, giving her a subtle shake of the head. "It's okay," he said quietly. "We can do this. Together." The queen's gaze moved from her daughter to Marcus, the silent tension between them palpable. She did not trust him, would she ever? But she had no choice. She had made an alliance, and now she had to follow through with it. "Very well," the queen said, her voice cold but unwavering. "But know this, if anything happens to my daughter, I will hold you responsible." Marcus met her gaze with a steady look. "I understand." With that, the plan was set into motion. The queen's warship moved swiftly toward Joris, its engines humming with the promise of what was to come. The crew was on edge, knowing that the mission they were about to undertake could very well be their last. The stakes were higher than ever before, and failure was not an option. As they neared the moon, the queen stood at the command deck, her eyes focused on the dark, craggy surface of Joris below. The rogue faction's facility was hidden deep within the moon's jagged mountains, its defenses strong and impenetrable. They would need every advantage they could get if they were to succeed. "Prepare for landing," the queen ordered, her voice steady. "And remember, this is not just about saving our people. This is about saving the galaxy." As the warship descended toward the surface, the queen felt a flicker of hope deep within her. For the first time since her daughter's disappearance, she could see a chance at victory, at survival. But it would not be easy. There would be no mercy, no room for failure. If they were to succeed, they would need to fight with everything they had. And if they failed, the galaxy itself could fall into darkness. The final battle was about to begin. The warship landed silently on the barren surface of Joris. Its engines hummed one last time before shutting off, leaving only the stillness of space and the distant, haunting glow of the moon's jagged mountains. The queen stood at the front of the ship, her eyes scanning the rocky horizon. Her heart pounded in her chest. This was it, the moment that would decide everything. The queen had led her people through countless battles, but this mission was different. If they failed, the galaxy would fall under the rogue faction's control. The ancient weapon they were trying to destroy could obliterate entire fleets, civilizations, even entire planets. It wasn't just about defeating an enemy anymore. It was about survival. "Commander, report," the queen ordered, her voice steady but filled with tension. The commander of the ship's elite team stepped forward. "We've identified the location of the rogue faction's facility. It's hidden in a canyon system several kilometers from here. The terrain is rugged, but we can make our way through undetected if we stay on course." The queen nodded. "Prepare the team. We move out in 10 minutes. Her daughter, standing beside Marcus, exchanged a quick glance with her. There was no time for sentimental words, no room for hesitation. They all knew the stakes, and they had all made their peace with the danger ahead. "I'm ready," the daughter said quietly, though her voice trembled slightly. It wasn't fear. It was the weight of the responsibility she carried. Her mother had trusted her with a mission that could cost her life, but she couldn't back down now. Marcus, ever the soldier, stood beside her. His eyes were sharp, his demeanor unwavering. "We'll do this together," he assured her. "No matter what happens." The Queen took one last look at the ship before turning to face her team. "Remember, the survival of all races depends on this. We cannot afford to fail." As the team disembarked, they moved swiftly and silently across the rocky landscape, their boots crunching softly on the moon's dry surface. The canyon loomed ahead, and they could see the faint outline of the rogue faction's hidden facility in the distance. It was well guarded, heavily fortified, and likely to be swarming with enemies. The Queen's mind raced, calculating every possible move, every risk, every contingency. They reached the base of the canyon, and the shadows cast by the towering cliffs seemed to stretch endlessly into the distance. The team moved quickly, staying low and out of sight. Each step felt like it could be their last. Inside the facility, a low hum reverberated through the walls. The Queen could feel the power of the weapon they were about to destroy pulsing through the air. She didn't know exactly what it was, but she knew it was unlike anything they had ever encountered before. The facility was ancient, its technology old but deadly. There were no guarantees, no easy answers. The closer they got, the more the Queen could feel the tension rising in her chest. Her people were trained for battle, but this was a fight against something far beyond their understanding. She looked at her daughter and Marcus, and for a moment her heart wavered. They had come so far, and yet there was no guarantee they would succeed. "Stay sharp," the commander whispered, his voice tight with caution. "We're close." The team moved into position, weapons drawn, their steps silent against the moon's rocky surface. The Queen's heart was pounding now, her breath steady but quick. They'd reached the entrance to the facility, an imposing metal door that seemed almost impenetrable. Marcus stepped forward, pressing a small device against the door. The lock clicked, and the massive door slowly creaked open. Inside was darkness, a vast, empty space filled with the faint hum of machinery. The air was thick with the smell of oil and metal. The Queen signaled for the team to move forward. The facility was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that made the hair on the back of your neck stand on end. They moved deeper into the complex, each step taking them closer to the heart of the weapon. As they turned a corner, the first enemy appeared. A soldier, armored and ready for combat, came into view. The Queen's team reacted instantly, silently taking the soldier down before he could raise an alarm. But that was just the beginning. More soldiers began to emerge from the shadows, and the Queen's team found themselves in the midst of a fierce firefight. The weapons were advanced, but the Queen's warriors were faster, more precise. Marcus fought alongside them, his movements swift and calculated. Despite their skill, the Queen could feel the weight of each passing second. Time was running out. Every minute they spent fighting brought them closer to failure. "Push forward," the Queen commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We cannot afford to be delayed." Her team pressed on, taking down more soldiers as they made their way deeper into the facility. The sound of explosions echoed through the hallways as they neared the weapon's core. Finally, they reached it. The weapon was massive, an enormous glowing structure at the center of the facility. It pulsed with an eerie energy, its power almost tangible in the air. The Queen could feel it in her bones, the threat of the destruction it could unleash. "This is it," Marcus said, his voice low. "We have to destroy it now." The Queen stepped forward, her hand steady, as she activated the device that would disable the weapon. The hum of energy began to fade, but just as they thought they had succeeded, the ground trembled beneath their feet. A voice boomed through the facility's loudspeakers, cold and commanding. "You think you can stop us? This is only the beginning." The Queen's heart sank. It wasn't over. The rogue faction had planned for this. They had anticipated their every move. The walls began to shake violently, and the facility's alarms blared. The Queen turned to her daughter and Marcus, her eyes burning with resolve. "Get to the ship," she ordered. "Now." The team fought their way back toward the exit, but as they reached the door, the facility began to collapse around them. The rogue faction had triggered a self-destruct sequence. They had only moments to escape. The Queen, her daughter, and Marcus made it to the warship just in time, the facility exploding behind them in a blinding flash of light. The Queen's heart raced as they lifted off the surface of Joris, the flames of the explosion reflecting in her eyes. They had succeeded, but the battle was far from over. The galaxy was still in peril, and the Queen knew that their fight had only just begun. The future of their people, and the entire galaxy, hung in the balance.